Since Xi Jinping came to power in 2012-2013, Thailand and China have moved from a friendly relationship to a much deeper strategic partnership. The relationship has expanded across economics, infrastructure, security, technology, and diplomacy. Although Thailand has committed and continued to avoid formally aligning with either China or the United States, the progression can be divided into several phases. 2013-2014 Strategic Economic Engagement. Thailand joined China's Belt and Road Initiative. Negotiations accelerated on the Bangkok Nong Khai high speed railway intended to eventually connect with Kunming in China. Trade and investment increased steadily, with China becoming Thailand's largest trading partner. 2014 to 2019 military government and closer political ties. After Thailand's 2014 military coup, Western governments, particularly the United States, reduced some military cooperation and criticized Bangkok's political situation. Beijing adopted a policy of non-interference, strengthening relationship with Thailand's military government. Thailand increased purchase of Chinese military equipment including the V-84 tanks, submarines, while expanding joint military exercises. 2020 to 2022 Comprehensive Strategic Partnership. Cooperation expanded beyond trade into digital infrastructure, public health and logistics. During Xi's visit to Bangkok for the 2022 APEC summit, both governments announced work towards a China-Thailand community with a shaped future, elevating political cooperation further. 2023 to present, Economic Integration and Security Cooperation. China remains Thailand's largest trading partner. Chinese investment has grown rapidly in electric vehicles, batteries, manufacturing, and logistics. Both countries have increased cooperation against cybercrime, online scam networks, and transnational crime operating around the Myanmar border. The Bangkok Kunming Railway remains one of the flagship long-term connectivity projects. The relationship today rests on five major pillars. Pillar number 1, economics. China is Thailand's largest trading partner. Chinese firms are major investors in EV manufacturing, industrial park, and infrastructure. Point number 2, infrastructure. The high-speed rail project linking Thailand into China's rail network is a centerpiece of bilateral cooperation. Point number 3, security. Joint military exercises have become more frequent. Thailand has purchased more Chinese equipment than in previous decades. Law enforcement cooperation has expanded to target cybercrime and trafficking networks. Point number 4, political diplomacy. Leaders frequently describe the relationship using the phrase China and Thailand are as close as one family. Both governments emphasize mutual respect and non-interference in domestic affairs. Point number 5, technology and industry. Cooperation now includes electric vehicles, digital economy initiatives, artificial intelligence, and advanced manufacturing. Despite this deepened relationship, Thailand has not become a Chinese ally in the formal sense. Bangkok still maintains its treaty alliance with the United States, participates actively in ASEAN, attempts to balance relationships between Washington and Beijing, rather than choosing one side. Overall, under Xi Jinping, China-Thailand relationships have shifted from primary commercial ties to a broader strategic partnership encompassing economics, infrastructure, security, and political coordination. While Thailand continues to pursue a hedging strategy between the two major powers. Thailand's quiet pivot. How China became Bangkok's most important partner. Segment 1. The neighbor that never left. For decades, Thailand managed to do something that many countries struggle with. It stayed friendly with almost everyone. It was one of America's oldest allies in Asia, hosting joint military exercises with the US, welcomed Japanese investments, traded with Europe, and at the same time maintained warm relationships with China. Bangkok had mastered the art of balance, but then the world began to change. When Xi Jinping became China's leader in 2012, Beijing stopped thinking only about growing its economy. It started thinking about influence, connectivity, and long-term strategy. Roads, railways, ports, digital networks, energy corridors, China wanted to reshape Asia through the Belt and Road Initiative. And sitting right in the middle of mainland Southeast Asia was Thailand. For Beijing, Thailand was just another country. It For Beijing, Thailand wasn't just another country, it was a gateway, a bridge between southern China and the rest of Southeast Asia. A nation with stable institutions and a strategic location, as well as decades of friendly diplomatic ties. What followed wasn't a dramatic alliance or a sudden geopolitical earthquake. Instead, it was something much quieter and arguably much more significant. Over the next decade, China and Thailand would slowly build one of the closest strategic relationships in Southeast Asia, one investment, one railway, and one diplomatic meeting at a time. Segment 2, a coup that changed the diplomatic landscape. Then came a moment that very few people expected would reshape Thailand's foreign policy. In 2014, Thailand's military seized power in a coup, overthrowing the elected government. Almost immediately, criticism poured in from Western capitals. Washington condemned the coup, suspended part of its military cooperation, called for a return to democratic rule. European governments voiced similar concerns. Bangkok suddenly found itself under immense diplomatic pressure from many of its traditional partners. But Beijing acted very differently. China didn't criticize the new government. It didn't lecture Thailand about domestic politics or threaten sanctions. Instead, Chinese leaders emphasized a principle they had repeated for decades. Every country has a right to choose its own political path without outside interference. For Thailand's military government, the message carried enormous weight. As some doors in the West became more difficult to open, China's doors stayed wide open. High level visits continued, trade expanded, investment discussion accelerated. The relationship didn't just survive the political turmoil, it became even stronger. This wasn't just because Thailand suddenly abandoned the United States, because it didn't. Instead, Bangkok learned an important lesson about great power geopolitics. When one partner becomes less available, another is often willing to step in. China saw an opportunity, Thailand saw a reliable partner that wasn't asking for uncomfortable political questions. Neither side needed to sign a military alliance to announce a dramatic new partnership. The shift happened gradually, almost quietly, yet beneath closed doors, both governments were beginning to trust each other more than ever before. And that growing trust would soon produce something tangible, one of the most ambitious infrastructure projects Southeast Asia had ever seen. Segment 3, the railway that was never just about trains. At first glance, it looked like an ordinary railway project, a high-speed rail line stretching from Bangkok towards Nong Khai on Thailand's northern border. Fast trains, modern stations, shorter travel times. For most people, that was the entire story, but beneath the surface, this railway represented something much bigger. China envisioned a transportation network that would connect Kunming in southern China to Laos, then into Thailand, and eventually further south towards Malaysia and Singapore. Instead of relying only on sea routes, goods could move across the heart of mainland Southeast Asia by rail. For Thailand, the project promised new infrastructure, better regional connectivity, and the possibility of becoming a logistics hub linking multiple economies. For China, it was a critical piece of a much larger strategic puzzle. Progress wasn't always a progress wasn't always smooth. Negotiations over financing, construction costs, engineering standards, land acquisition slowed the projects more than once. Critics questioned whether the railway was worth the expense, while supporters argued that infrastructure should be measured in decades, not election cycles. Yet, despite the delays, neither side walked away. That persistence revealed something important. The railway had become more than a construction project. It had become a symbol of the relationship itself. Every new section completed sent the same message. Despite disagreements over details, Bangkok and Beijing intended to keep moving forward together. As concrete pillars rose across the Thai countryside, another transformation was taking place, one that couldn't be seen from the tracks. Chinese companies were arriving in increasing numbers, beginning factories, investments, and a new wave of industrial cooperation that would reshape parts of Thailand's economy. Segment 4, From Factories to the Future. If the railway was the most visible sign of partnership, the real transformation was happening behind factory gates. As global supply chains shifted and companies searched for new manufacturing hubs, Chinese businesses began investing heavily in Thailand. Industrial parks expanded, new factories appeared, but this wasn't simply about producing cheaper goods anymore. The focus had changed. Electric vehicles, lithium batteries, smart electronics, robotics, and advanced manufacturing became the new frontier. Some of China's biggest automakers chose Thailand as a regional production base, hoping to serve not just Thai market, but all of Southeast Asia. For Thailand, the opportunity was obvious. The country had spent decades building one of Asia's strongest automotive industries. Now, instead of being left behind by the electric vehicle revolution, it had a chance to become one of its leaders. Chinese investments accelerated that transition. Factories that once assembled gasoline powered cars began preparing for electric vehicles. Battery plants followed. Suppliers expanded. Local workers gained new skills while Thai businesses became part of an increasingly interconnected regional manufacturing network. Of course, not everyone celebrated this trend. Some economists warned that Thailand could become too dependent on Chinese investment. Others argued that local companies might struggle to compete with the scale and financial strength of Chinese firms. The debate became less about whether China was investing and more about how much influence those investments might actually bring. But from Bangkok's perspective, their calculation was practical. Thailand wasn't looking for a single economic partner. It wanted investments, technologies, jobs, and access to growing markets. If the Chinese companies were willing to provide those opportunities while others hesitated, Bangkok saw little reason to turn them away. By the early 2020s, the relationship had evolved far beyond trade. The next step would be political. China and Thailand were no longer simply doing business together. They were beginning to describe their relationship in a language usually reserved for long-term strategic partners. Segment 5. More than business. By the early 2020s, it had become clear that the relationship between China and Thailand had moved beyond economics. When leaders from both countries met, the conversations were no longer limited to trade figures or investment deals. They spoke about regional stability, supply chains, technology, public health, digital infrastructure, and the future of Asia itself. The language had changed, and that mattered. In 2022, during the APEC summit in Bangkok, President Xi Jinping visited Thailand at a time when the world was emerging from the COVID-19 pandemic and global competition was becoming sharper. The visit wasn't just ceremonial. Both governments announced their intention to build what they called a China-Thailand community with a shared future. It was a phrase that appeared repeatedly in Chinese diplomacy, but in Thailand it carried a specific message. Beijing was signaling that China was no longer viewed as simply a trading partner. It was now considered one of China's key long-term partners in Southeast Asia. At the same time, cooperation expanded into areas that rarely made headlines. Police agencies worked together against online scams syndicates operating near the Myanmar border. Discussions on cybersecurity became more frequent. Universities signed research agreements. Tourism recovered after the pandemic, bringing millions of Chinese visitors back to Thailand and reviving an industry that had suffered enormously. Yet Bangkok remained careful. Thailand never announced that it was choosing China over the United States. American troops still participated in military exercises on that soil. Thai officials continued meeting leaders from Washington, Tokyo, Brussels, and other capitals. Rather than picking a side, Thailand continued practicing the balancing act that had shaped its foreign policy for decades. That may be the most remarkable part of this story. As the rivalry between the world's two largest powers intensified, many countries found themselves under pressure to lean one way or the other. Thailand chose a very different path. It deepened its partnership with China while keeping its old relationships alive, trying to benefit from both worlds, without becoming fully dependent on either. Whether that balancing act can survive an increasingly divided world is a question that will define the next chapter of Thailand's foreign diplomacy. Segment 6. The balancing act that could shape Asia's future. Today, if you ask whether Thailand is becoming part of China's sphere of influence, the answer isn't as straightforward as many headlines suggest. China is Thailand's largest trading partner. Chinese companies are investing billions of dollars in manufacturing and infrastructure. The two governments cooperate on security, technology, tourism, and regional development. By almost every measurable standard, the relationship is stronger than it has ever been. And yet, Thailand has stopped well short of becoming a Chinese ally. The country still maintains one of America's oldest treaty alliances in Asia. Every year, Thai and American forces participate in Cobra Gold, one of the Indo-Pacific's largest military exercises. Japanese companies remain major investors. ASEAN continues to be the foundation of Thailand's regional diplomacy. This isn't a contradiction, it's a strategy. Bangkok understands that geography cannot be changed. China will always be its giant northern neighbor. At the same time, Thailand also knows that its prosperity depends on maintaining strong ties with the United States, Japan, South Korea, Europe, and the rest of Southeast Asia. So instead of choosing one camp, Thailand has chosen flexibility. When Chinese investment brings factories, Thailand welcomes it. When American military cooperation strengthens regional security, Thailand participates. When ASEAN seeks unity, Bangkok supports it. Rather than placing all of its bets on a single power, Thailand continues spreading its relationships across multiple partners. Whether the strategy will remain viable is one of the biggest geopolitical questions facing Southeast Asia. As competition between Washington and Beijing grows more intense, the room for countries to stay balanced may become increasingly narrow. But for now, Thailand continues to walk that diplomatic tightrope with remarkable skill, and perhaps that's the real story. This isn't the story of a country abandoning one partner for another. It is the story of a nation trying to thrive in a world where great powers compete, where economics and geopolitics are deeply intertwined, and where every new railway, factory, investment, or diplomatic handshake carries consequences far beyond its borders. The relationship between China and Thailand is still being written, and as Asia becomes the center of global geopolitics and economics, the decisions made in Bangkok and Beijing may prove to be far more important and consequential than many people realize. Conclusion: a friendship built on interests, not illusions. If there is one lesson from the past decade, is that international relationships are rarely driven by friendship alone. China didn't deepen its partnership with Thailand out of sentiment. Thailand didn't welcome Chinese investments out of ideology. Both countries saw opportunities that aligned with their own national interests. China gained a reliable partner at the heart of Southeast Asia and a growing market for its companies, and an important link in its vision of a more connected Asia. Thailand gained investment, infrastructure, access to technology, and a powerful economic partner at a time when the global economy was becoming even more uncertain. Neither side got everything it wanted. Railway projects moved slower than expected. Some investments sparked debates. Questions remain about debt, competition, long-term dependence, but despite those challenges, the relationship has continued to deepen because both governments believe the benefits outweigh the costs. Whether that calculation still holds 10 or 20 years from now remains to be seen. If tensions between China and the United States continue to rise, countries like Thailand may find it increasingly difficult to maintain the careful balancing act that has served them so damn well. That has served them so well. The pressure to choose sides could become stronger than ever before. But for now, Bangkok continues to pursue a foreign policy rooted in pragmatism rather than ideology. While Beijing continues to view Thailand as one of its most important partners in mainland Southeast China, in the end, this isn't just a story about two countries. It's a story about how power is shifted across Asia, and how infrastructure can become geopolitics, and how trade can evolve into strategic influence, and about how middle powers like Thailand navigate an era where the world's largest nations are competing for influence once again. This story is far from over. In many ways, it's only just the beginning. For decades, Thailand was known for balancing its relationship with every major power. It maintained a strong standing alliance with the United States, welcomed Japanese investments, strengthened ties with ASEAN, and kept friendly relations with China. But after Xi Jinping came to power, something began to change. And today we just discussed how China and Thailand transformed their relationship from economic cooperation into a broader strategic partnership. From the 2014 military coup and the Belt and Road Initiative to high-speed rails, electric vehicle investments, regional diplomacy, and growing security cooperation. Today we talked about the evolution of one of Southeast Asia's most important geopolitical relationships. Has Thailand moved into China's sphere of influence, or is Bangkok simply playing a careful balancing game between Washington and Beijing? As the rivalry between the two world's largest power intensifies, As the rivalry between the world's two largest power intensifies, Thailand's choices would shape the future of Southeast Asia. If you enjoy in-depth geopolitical documentaries covering Asia, global strategy, economics, and international relations, subscribe for more such analysis. Till then, goodbye.